You guys ever heard of ILPs before? Individualized learning plans. So traditionally, these have actually been more of a thing for people who aren't, cutting it. So you have to try to put them on these individual plans. But there's been a lot of research that shows that people, especially older people, adults, learn much better using this as well. And there's different ways to do it. If you search this, you're going to find a million different templates and theories about how you do it. But the basic idea is that you will write down all your goals. So you actually have to set out and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, this is how I'm going to do it. And you have some kind of follow-up to make sure that you're actually getting there. And it's one of the reasons that the ACGME really wants to do it is because of lifelong learning. So doctors, they graduate, they keep learning. Then you look at older doctors, like 15, 20, 30 years out, and a lot of them traditionally stopped learning. And they just didn't have the skill to keep themselves up to date. So that's one of the reasons the ACGME is really looking into this. So those are just some comments that I read about it, that, the student-specific program of educational learning that takes into consideration person's strengths and weaknesses. That's kind of just what the plan is to do. And then Knowles has actually done a lot of work on this. Both these quotes are from papers that Knowles did. And they're basically saying this is the best thing that they've seen as far as actually seeing results for people, especially people once they graduate. And it's premised on the construct that adults learn best when they're actively engaged in the learning process and self-directed in learning their own goals and activities. So ILPs, what they are is they're formulated for each individual by their mentor, but primarily by themselves. It's an exercise in self-assessment, self-reflection, and learning. They're iterative, they're reproducible, you can keep doing the same process over and over again. And it's actually a big indicator for us. We ask these people to do some self-assessment and self-reflection. Some of these people that we're teaching don't really understand. So it's a way for us to indicate what kind of insight and ability they have. And then also for older people. What they're not static. They're not supposed to be evaluations. And they're actually not supposed to be primarily the responsibility of the faculty. They're supposed to be the responsibility of the learners. And we're supposed to guide them and make sure they're on the right track and have the right resources. So the parts of the ILP, it's self-assessment and reflection. That's where they sit down, they figure out what they need to learn, how they want to do it, and then taking into account where they want to be, what they want to do. You have to develop plans to reach each of those goals individually, and you have to assess the progress along the way, and then also revise and create new goals as you go, because you have both short-term and long-term goals, and as you either run into some roadblocks or achieve those goals, you want to keep the process moving. So it teaches lifelong learning and practice-based improvement. It shows ability for self-reflection and insight, shows ability to receive and understand and act on feedback, and allows focused learning, and allows for regular discussion and feedback when you have the system set up properly. Problems with them, some people don't have the ability to do much self-reflection. It's just another thing to do. Time constraints are a problem with a lot of stuff that we try to set up. Competing demands kind of falls into time constraints. A lot of times people have had difficulty generating goals. You tell somebody, what are you going to do? And they're just like a deer in headlights. They don't know where to start. There's just so much. Lack of follow-up and revision. Inability to track goals. So goals have to be chosen where you can actually see if there's progress made towards them. And then poor mentorship has been a problem with a lot of the programs established. So in order to develop these, first, the learner's got to get feedback, either from face-to-face conversations, from some post shift survey or something like that, and they got to get this feedback that's got to be timely. It's got to be somewhat specific, positive and negative, so they actually have some direction, know what they need to do. And after the resident, in our case, the resident gets all this information, they do a draft. They make a draft. They say, these are my goals, and this is how I think I'm going to do it. And then that would come to whoever the mentor is for, screening, maybe modification, maybe narrowing things down a little bit. And then afterwards, you have to revisit it and adjust it as needed. And that can be anywhere from weekly to monthly to semi-annually, depending on how you set up the program and what you want to do. Setting up the goals, though, is quite important. And there's this iSmart, which actually I hadn't heard of before. I don't know if you guys heard that before, but the goals, they need to be important and inspiring so the person actually has, you know, the drive to do it. It has to be specific. You can't say, I want to be a better doctor. You got to be able to measure it somehow. You got to have accountability, and it's got to be attainable. It's got to be realistic and relevant to what they're trying to learn. And it's got to be able to be achieved within a time frame that's set up. So, you know, we can't have them have their goals be things that can take them 4 or 5 years to get to. So when we implement the ILP, you have to have some kind of template. This is just a random one. It's very simple. They're all sort of similar, but it can be computer-based, it can be paper-based, it can be whatever you want. Somewhere where you put your goals down and you write out how you're going to get there, and then you've got some thing for tracking how you get there. If we're going to implement this, which we are going to have to, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find a template that we like, and we're going to have to modify it to fit our needs. We're going to have to make examples. Just that the trouble setting reasonable goals is a big deal. So I think we're going to have to maybe individually set one up ourselves that we can share with them and say, this is a good example of something you can do, both short-term goals, long-term goals, and how we achieve it. We're going to have to tell them about the process, educate them, educate ourselves, do things like this, and then develop some sort of a toolkit. So ideally, we'll have a packet for them with sheets of paper, some kind of information, some background, you know, nothing too long, but just so that they know what their expectations are.